Hello guys, NautoAis here, and I want to give my thoughts on this unfortunate news as a Idea Factory fan. So if you've been following for a while, in early 2024, Idea Factory International made an announcement that Dead End Request, Code Z, and the Hyperdimension Neptunia Re-Birth 1 all the way to 3 will be released on the Nintendo Switch. So first of all, Dead End Request Code Z will come out in 2025. Originally planned on the Switch, but also on the PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5. And yes, there's no Steam, but I'll talk about that later on. And then at the same time, in the beginning, they announced that on May of 2024, the original plan was that the Neptunia Re-Birth series will be released on the Switch. It's already been released in Japan, but in the West, all suddenly they said, well, we need to postpone it. And then all suddenly, it's delayed indefinitely. They don't know. And then every time someone asks about what's going on, they couldn't even answer. Like, we don't have any new news. Just keep an eye on it. And I even did a video that said that one of the possibility reason is it could be that Nintendo's are regulating this game now. And of course, to some extent, that theory was right. So, yeah. So I've been following the news. It's on Twitter. If you follow Idea Factory International, on a via press release, which I also got one, they confirmed it, that Hyperdimension Neptunia Re-Birth series and Dead End Request Code Z will no longer launch on the Nintendo Switch. And the reason for it is, and this is what they said, the 3 Neptunia titles and Dead End Request Code Z for North America and Europe, that's a key thing because remember, it's already out in Japan, will no longer launch on the Nintendo Switch eShop due to content of the Rebirth series and Dead End Request Code Z not complying with the Nintendo guidelines. So now they're saying there's a strict rule now with the Nintendo guidelines. Sound like Sony 2018. Remember, the difference is Sony is not telling you can't release the game. They just said you got to modify the game for a console. And of course, nobody likes censorship. This one, they're just saying that, yeah, we can have that. Unless they're doing the same thing. Hey, you got to modify the game for the West. And of course, developers don't like that because that costs more money. This is kind of weird because at first I'm like, why is this happening? Because at the same time, Gamazumi, believe it or not, they were also having flackle with Nintendo, believe it or not. So in 2022, there were some already hint that Nintendo was starting to regulate frontal boob exposure. So if you didn't know, there are some games that actually has full frontal boobs. Not the whole body, not full frontal, just the boob, because it's M-rated. Because if you're playing like GTA or some God of War, there's M-rated or some boob exposure. Heck, Castlevania Lord of Shadow, one of the summon monster has a lady that has boob exposure. Just saying there. However, they're getting notes from Nintendo, again, it's in 2022, that they're no longer allowed showing uncensored boob. So Gamazumi was trying to release Hot Tentacle Shooter, if you know what that is. If you play it on the Steam, it is uncensored and you get what it is. I mean, it's a little trick for that game because there's either full suit, swimsuit, and naked. Unless you're going to do some sort of modification that only has full frontal boob. I mean, 20 ladies, believe it or not, has full frontal boobs. Just saying. I mean, from East Asia stuff, but that's beside the point. But suddenly they're saying now, they're not doing that anymore. They're regulating. They're not allowing it. And at a time, they were saying that Nintendo was concerned with their brand image. So that's what's happening. So they said, okay, fine. We're not going to release with full frontals. That's why not like later game on the series. Believe it or not, they don't even show it anymore. And it's so funny because at the time, Furukawa basically said about censorship that someone asked about content regulation on other platforms. There are cases of restriction applied independently of the Zero and other third-party organizations such as PEGI and the ESRB. What does Nintendo do? And this is what Furukawa said. Nintendo, as do third parties and other software, applies an objective rating from third-party organization prior to release. If platform holding company choose arbitrarily, the diversity and fairness in game software would be significantly inhibited. We provide parental control that can be used to apply limits. So at the time, Furukawa basically said was, hey, let the Zero do it. Let the ESRB, let PEGI do it. But again, now they're saying no. And another concern could be that because since these both games are already out in Japan, but not in the West, this could be something that happened in the 90s with Nintendo, and that is region regulation, which is nobody likes that. For people who don't know what that is when one region is okay, while another region, no, it's not. Case in point, in the 90s, Nintendo kind of did that. Things that in Japan, they had to be censored outside of Japan. Regional difference. In the case with Sony, they're doing this global standard. So they're trying to make it parity to all region. But if it is sort of a regional regulation, that's not a good thing. That's kind of bullshit. And I don't know why Nintendo's doing it. Again, maybe in the back end, somebody's saying, hey, Nintendo, I thought you were a family-friendly company. Why are you allowing this type of game? This is concerning. And the funny part is that Hyper Dimension Neptunia Re-Birth series, there's T rating, and there's not a lot of nudity. Yeah, there's like hot spring and just skin, but there's no butts. You don't see someone's butt. That's V2 and V2R. Heck, even in Super Neptune RPG, that one hot spring, you see skin. But you don't see boobs, but you do see a lot of skin. In the case with Dead End Request, Code Z, it is an M-rated game. It is a horror game. And yet, there are designs that shows anime waifu girl getting decimated, if you know what I mean. But that is what Dead End Request is. Just saying that. So what does it mean? I don't know. This is kind of weird that all of a sudden Nintendo and I was saying that, it's not to our standard and practice it. It's not following our guidelines. We're going to be strict, which is kind of weird. All suddenly they're doing this. I mean, in the case with Sony, yeah, they were doing it in 2018, and look what's happening now. Now they're realizing that it's not working. And I know the most common thing is we don't want to get sued. That's what it is. So it's kind of weird because at first, here's a fun story that Gamazumi, so two particular games that's very popular if you follow Gamazumi or Wing Clouded game, the Sakura series. Sakura Succubus 8 is Sakura Melody. Been announced that's going to be PlayStation exclusive, and people's like, that's kind of weird. Because in the past, if you've been noticing, a lot of the Sakura's visual novel game are on Switch, but it's not on Sony. Gamer, Angel, Dungeon, you name it. Most of them are not on a PlayStation console, but it's on the Switch. And all suddenly with Sakura Succubus 8 and with Melody, it's like, oh, it's going to be PlayStation exclusive. And it's kind of weird that Sony's not allowing after this California woke shit. And like even Gamazumi said that if you want this game to be on other console, just keep sharing and let your voice heard. But that's going to be in death's ear to some extent. And now with Idea Factory basically saying, hey, in the West, Neptunia Re-Birth series and Dead End Request Code Z will no longer be in the Switch. I don't know what's going on there. And I know there been a hint in Nintendo. They had a new occupation that basically, in layman's term, I hate to say it, a walk position. So they have somebody, some sort of their own sweet baby, we call it, or their ethics committee from Square Enix, you know. And if that's really true, that's what's happening, what is that kind of deny this game? My theory, and like I said, we didn't request Code Z. It's probably the gory with the anime girl, even though they're fictional. It maybe just doesn't look good. In case with Neptunia, like I said, fan service, I don't know because it's T. Remember, it's on Steam, it's on the Vita. There you go. So you got option with the Rebirth series. And of course, in Japan, it's also on the PlayStation. And remember, at the time, Idea Factory International was only going to release it on the Switch, and that's it. And when people said, come on, you got to bring it to the PS4, they said, oh, well, think about it. It's just a corporate response. Again, they're probably just following their overlord. It is what it is there. So now, like I said, Hyperdimension Neptunia Re-Birth series are on Steam. Plus, they even have some exclusive DLC that's only on that particular platform. Okay, no problem there. You got a Steam Deck, cool. And of course, if you got a Vita, there you go. And of course, if you have PS5, you got Reverse, which is Neptunia Re-Birth 1, an enhanced game. I did talk about it before. Then you're good. You have a lot of options there. And hopefully, maybe in the long run, this means now that Idea Factory might now just consider, hey, you know what, we're just going to put in the PS platform since Nintendo is going to deny it. So, and I think the reason also the reverse with Sony, and I got to give credit to Ed Dimion. He said there was some civil war with Sony, with woke Sony versus Japan Sony. I mean, if it is kind of true, that is kind of asinine, but it is what it is. We'll just have to wait and see. Now, it comes with Dead End Request Code Z. Of course, in Japan, it's already out. It's on the Switch. It's on the PlayStation console. In the West, they are still, hopefully cross finger, we'll just have to wait and see. It will be still released on the PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5 in 2025. So, still in that one, it's still good. Hopefully, cross finger, because this game doesn't have a Steam release. And a lot of people wonder what's going on. I think even Shay and Bruce from Idea Factory International kind of explained it. And they said they are looking into it to see if they can try to port them. There had been rumor, and I did say this before, that the reason the lack of Steam release allowed this game out suddenly is that the people behind that's in charge of porting it to the Steam version in Idea Factory International, they left. That from what I heard, again, I don't know if it's true or not, but from what I heard, from a lot of people did say, those particular group of people left the company and they don't have anyone to do it that have the knowledge of it. So unless you have the knowledge, you probably can't do it. I mean, it is what it is there. I'm just saying, that is a rumor. I don't know if it's true or not. They did say that they are looking into it. Again, you just have to look it up in the internet. Play detective. Who knows? An update on this situation, and credit to Sungrand Studios. So he kind of gave his theory of why the Hyperdimension Neptunia Re-Birth series is canceled in Europe and in North America. And he basically said was some sort of age gate rating. So theorizing that it's not really Idea Factory's idea's fault. And it might not be even Nintendo with their guideline. Because most people are thinking, are you trying to be like Sony 2018 that there's certain things you're not allowed to put it in? But he's theorizing that it has nothing to do with Nintendo to some extent, that they don't censor their game. Remember, Nintendo only censored their first party game. When it comes to third party, it's supposed to be the ESRB. So I have to probably take it back to some extent of what Furukawa said, that it could have been that it is the age rating board. Because apparently also, and I kind of feel it might be true what he's saying, that the ESRB is becoming strict now every year, believe it or not. So remember in 2020 with Violet, remember the trailer, they had to modify when you do like a cross promotion. Of course, the Mii costume, your game is E for 10. And if you're trying to promote a M-rated game, you can't really mention the name of the game. Has to be the name of the character. Sort of a loophole. Annoying, it's embarrassing, kind of makes sense there. And of course, another one, and I did not really talk about this, and the Record of Lawless War, that Metrovania game. So there was someone basically doing a restock, like a re-release of this physical. However, unfortunately, the cover, they had to modify it. If you know the character, the Dark Elf, you can see her cleavage, the way she dressed, open front chest. And then the revised version, not anymore. And people are wondering what happened. And the company basically said was, well, it was a request from the ESRB. And remember that in the West, you have to modify the cover because you have to comply with the ESRB. The bottom line is what Sungrand Studios is basically saying is, chances are, it might be that the ESRB is the problem. And that they're becoming, I hate to go here, very strict and toxic to a point that, oh boy, like, oh, you can't do this, you can't do that anymore. Like, they're not even being open about it. It's like, oh, this is bad, and we say so. And what Sungrand Studio basically said was, the theory behind it is that apparently that they had to update the rating, and that they probably told Idea Factory International, hey, look, this Neptunia Re-Birth series, in the West, yeah, we think it's not appropriate for T rating. We want you to be M rated. And remember, a lot of this Rebirth series before, it is T rating, but now apparently the ESRB now saying, oh no, now it's M rated. I mean, wait a minute. Why is it T before, but now it's M now? Things change, updated rules, updated standard, who knows? And to a point that Idea Factory International said, you know what, we're not going to change the rating this, because of course, the higher the rating, that'll be harder to sell. And to some extent, they have to do some modification in the game. And like I said before, when you do that, that costs money. So they just basically said, look, you know, if we're going to do this, we're going to lose more money trying to release it. Gotta take that L and we're just going to move on. And in the case with Dead and Request Code Z, probably the ESRB saying, hey, look, this is an AO game. It's very strict. Again, it could be the ESRB, but you might say, wait a minute. Why is it okay on PlayStation but not on Nintendo Switch? Well, apparently, Sungrand Studios said that the people who are in charge of the rating, not the ESRB side, but their own company. Remember to some extent what happened with Sister versus Sister. Somebody who was in charge of the rating screwed up, and so they had to modify the game, cost them more money. So it could be that also the reason. I don't know. Like I said, and according to Sun Grand Studio, the possibility is that who's ever in charge on the Switch side for Neptunia Re-Birth probably is either inexperienced or they don't have anyone, and they just say, you know what, we'll just cut their L. So again, my thoughts about that one is, if it is sort of an ESRB situation, that is interesting. But like I said, it's still confusing because, like I said, Dead End Request Code Z is not going to come out on the Switch, but it will still coming out on the PS4 and PS5. I don't know. He basically said it just really just depends who's in charge. That's what it is. It could be a Nintendo representative for ESRB, probably inexperienced, versus someone from the PlayStation ESRB side. I don't know. It is confusing, but it is what it is there. So that is an update to some extent that it might not have been Nintendo's fault. It could be some sort of an ESRB on the Nintendo side, and that either that person is not really experienced, they don't know how to deal with it, and then rather than waste more money trying to modify the game or change the rule, they just said, let's just take that L, because at least it's the lesser of two evil. We're not going to lose a lot of money. So there you go. So if you've been wondering what's happening with the Neptunia Re-Birth series, it's been confirmed. It will no longer be released in the Switch in the West. And a lot of these guests, that's it. I mean, they trying to see if they trying to see a workaround, and I guess they didn't. In the end, they just said, you know what, screw this, we're done. So what does it mean with the Rebirth series? Hopefully 2025, they are just going to say, you know what, we're just going to re-release it on the PlayStation, that's it. So what about other Idea Factory games that have been published by other companies such as East Asia Shop? Of course, Tokyo Kaland, it's going to come out next week, December the 19th. So I think that's already done. And that's why a lot of people, if it's how come those other games were released, but not this one. And my theory behind that is it was already being approved before the new content guidelines from Nintendo. I guess the newer games it is, and I don't know why with Neptunia, since originally it was going to be released on May of 2024. I don't know. And of course, Dead End Request Code Z 2025. So who knows? So it's going to be interesting on the next Idea Factory stream if they're going to be able to elaborate. But yeah, it has been confirmed via PR. They'll no longer be on the Switch. I don't know what's going to happen. We'll just have to wait and see. So with that, I'll see you guys later.